Oh boy. Okay, so before I even start, I just want to say that I am absolutely in love with Marvel, if you can't tell. But you know what I love more than a large company owned by an even larger conglomerate? I love cinema. So it's important to say that my views on these companies are based on facts and the criteria of the subjective media. I will never say something's good without a justified reason for saying so. It's also important to say that I went into this thinking it would be one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. I caught the earliest matinee possible, and after all the hype and all the speculation, I was pretty damn excited. Come on, Agatha Harkness is Mephisto's wife, Evan Peters as Quicksilver shows up in the WandaVision show, and No Way Home was an amazing prelude to this movie. All the ingredients were there. So I guess the question is, how was the movie? It's really bad. I guess in my opinion, some people really liked it. This will be spoiler free, but if you've seen the movie, you'll know the context for the scenes I'm talking about. So starting off, you see what's in the trailers. You know, the hype is definitely there. The first thing I'll say about Sam Raimi is definitely adds color to your basic Marvel film in engaging ways, and there are some really cool visuals here. Not necessarily composure-wise, like this or this. And at some point in the first act, I said to myself, a character just asked another character, clearly alive and well on screen, "You're alive?" And they replied, "I'm alive." Yeah, that was the first red flag, but I said to myself, hey, I'll roll with it. Maybe it'll get better. Very soon you realize that there are elements suggesting you should be scared. Sam Raimi uses many creative camera movements, and Danny Elfman's music sets the tone very early on. And at first, it's almost exciting to feel like you're watching a Sam Raimi superhero movie again. And then the multiverse stuff happens, and oh my god, let me ask you a question. If you ask a production company primarily marketed to kids and young adults to make a horror film, who are you making the movie for? You know, you might say crucial elements for horror are too jarring to sell action figures to young bimbo over here, and the scenes are too childish to hold the attention of old Jimbo over here. So if that's what you were thinking, then surprise, that's exactly what happens. There are so many of the cliche piano and string stabs. Literally, think of any corny, creepy horror piano, and I promise you, that's exactly what it was, and it happens a million times at least. In fact, 2 or 3 of the Sam Raimi choices are used way too many times to the point where it's distracting. Not to say every choice is bad, some shots are fantastic. How many times are you gonna use a crossfade effect in this movie, my guy? Are you like really into eyeballs also? Is that like your thing, dude? I'm not judging. I'm just curious at this point. And does this piano sting have to happen every 10 minutes? Come on now. At some point, it starts to take away from the jump scares. At this point in the movie, I'm looking for anything that's interesting. Of course, CGI from a movie this big is going to be great. Let's look past that. And yeah, maybe there are some cool new characters from the comics, but just in case the movie underuses them or shits on your expectations, let's focus on the movie. Not as a piece of the company, but on its own. And once I saw the movie from this perspective, my experience changed dramatically. For example, let's go back to that dialogue. Beginning of the second act, I'm beginning to notice a trend, and it's that I've read better dialogue from my film studies class. First lesson of dialogue is to not just convey information that can be shown physically or be assumed by the audience. In fact, one of my first lessons in film, and one of the most important ones I've gotten, is 2 + 2, or show, don't tell. Let the audience piece together what's happening, and they'll love you for it. Does this movie do this? No, not at all. The dialogue somehow gets worse as the movie stakes get higher, because you as a viewer rely on strong dialogue to care about these characters outside of the context of other content, which leads to a really big issue. There are amazing actors in this film who deliver lines as I can't really put this in any other way other than it seems like they're being directed by Sam Raimi, and it's really dry. And I hate to be so mean to Michael Waldron. The man produced and created a couple of really cool parts of Loki and Rick and Morty, surprisingly, but it shows that he isn't primarily a writer. And I'm not sure if it's Sam Raimi's doing, but the jokes in this are so bare. Not saying it has to be a comedy, but when it does make its jokes, they don't land and have very little layers to them. Some parts of the overall story are interesting, but the dialogue's execution mixed with Sam Raimi's vision wrapped with Disney's requirement to make a movie marketable to everyone, yeah, that just hurts. At that point, it was halfway through the movie, I think. I gave up as a film critic and just said to myself, hey, we're already here, let's just have some fun. Maybe it'll end up being eye candy or cameo central, but Sam Raimi just makes sure that doesn't happen. He makes the movie feel like it's an Evil Dead Marvel film, but it's marketed to kids, so there's no blood or anything really necessarily scary, so it feels corny. And at some point, the continuous visual choices draw you back from what's happening on the screen. Sometimes fights are cool and 1 or 2 things are gory or spooky maybe, but then right after, something corny or stupid will happen to disengage the audience from that, which is an issue if you want to convey fear. Okay, and then there's this scene, and I don't want to say anything specific, but for context, I'll just put this up. Yeah, that scene. I gotta say, the money that went into that scene could have definitely been invested into other incredibly important parts of the story, and that was my turning point of optimism. Then the finale happened, and you just feel cheated, not only because the dialogue between these characters is at least at a first grade reading level, or because this is 70% of the movie, but because the lack of payoff for Marvel nerds too. And this is another one of the really big problems. It could be said that what truly makes Marvel successful is its ability to make incredible standalone projects that also weave together information known only those aware of the world's lore. And there is a balance. Payoff in the form of creative cinema and nods in the form of adaptation comics nerds can now enjoy. It's reliant on this balance. However, this movie just says, fuck it. This isn't the same as what happened with the Eternals. This movie had been speculated since before the last Avengers film and involved 2 separate shows and multiple X-Men films. And it's crucial plot-wise to the events that follow, making it different from Marvel movies that suck like Ant-Man and the Wasp. If one main point in the cinematic world is weak, the entire body of world that follows might have a hard time too. And if the movie succeeds and audiences like the garbage dialogue and the other strange elements this film has, it'll suggest that people like this level of media. And I'm not saying Marvel has been releasing cinematic masterpieces, but come on now, the last episode of Moon Knight came out 2 nights ago, and oh wow, yeah, one of my favorite pieces of Marvel ever, hands down. They outdid themselves with that one. The studio is more than capable, but then a movie like this comes around and I'm speechless. Gotta ask, what happened? I was so optimistic. I hate to say it, but so far this year, DC has my heart with superhero movies since Batman has set the bar extremely high. And maybe you're one of the people who really like this movie. You know what? I'm happy that one of the 2 of us are satisfied. And your opinion, I'm not even gonna shit on it because you're totally entitled to it. And guess what? I'm entitled to mine. So either way, I hope you have a good day.